We vaporized a bunch of narco traffickers. Did you see this? Did you see this video? I like that the President of the United States himself put out a video of this drug boat. Apparently there were 11 Tren de Aragua guys in a boatload of yayo heading towards the United States of America, and they are actually no longer with us. And Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth addressed it on the news this morning.
We knew exactly who was in that boat, we knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States trying to poison our country with illicit drugs. President Trump is willing to go on offense in ways that others have not been. And to send that clear signal to Tren de Aragua, Cartel del Sols, and others emanating from Venezuela, we're not going to allow this kind of activity. You're poisoning our people. We've got incredible assets, and they are gathering in the region. And so you want to try to traffic drugs, it's a new day. It's a different day. And so those 11 drug traffickers are no longer with us, sending a very clear signal that this is an activity the United States is not going to tolerate in our hemisphere.
We are gathering. Joining me now, Doug Truax, founder of Restoration of America, former U.S. Army captain. Doug, we're not just there, we're gathering. What's coming?
Well, it is a new day, isn't it? And I just look at this. It's such, on one level, you feel, hey, 11 people got killed, but hey, looks like those guys deserved it. And, any situation we've had previously politically where we've all been like, why is this going on? Why is all this fentanyl coming into the country? Why are the borders open? All these different things. And I think everybody in the country now has been touched by something somewhere by the fentanyl crisis. Somebody they knew died or knew somebody that knew somebody and things like that. And you watch these numbers and you say, when are we going to do something about this? And Biden was asleep at the wheel. I think back to, even Obama just let these guys do whatever he wanted to do, just kept growing and growing and growing. Trump, first term, under fire all the time, had 4 years to think about it now, and now he's back, and super thankful for Secretary Hegseth too. But I think all of us as Americans feel like, the number one job of the government is to protect the people. And we weren't being protected in a lot of ways. And however you feel about foreign interventions, I know you served and all that, as did I. And so we have our thoughts on being deployed and things like that. But when you get straight down into, hey, these guys are here to hurt us. They're here to hurt our kids. They're making money off of pain and suffering in our country. And our government has previously done nothing about it. So all of a sudden, those guys get taken out. And, it's got to releasing the video is genius, right? Because you want anybody on the other end in Venezuela or wherever to look at that video and think to themselves, I don't know about this anymore. It seemed like it was so easy before, just avoid the Coast Guard. And now the stakes are much higher. You might just get blown out of the water. And those guys didn't even know what happened, right? It just happened to them. And so their buddies are going to watch that, think about it. You know how it is in the military too. I'm sure with their ranks, it gets around the soldiers and they're like, I don't know, it's not so safe to go anymore. And hey, boss, I'm calling in sick today as opposed to that next drug run. And, that's what we need. We need some heavy resistance going back the other way. And it's a new day. And I'm super happy to see it. I think most Americans are, for sure.
Doug, do we believe, from what we're seeing right now, that this is just about blasting some narcos? Or do we believe, as Maduro very clearly believes, that this is about a potential regime change in Venezuela? I mean, moving 4,000 Marines and sailors off the coast is not a light show of force.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it sends a message that if we wanted to do it, we could do it. And I think that that's always been the message, as you know, being in the military, you always want to be in a situation where you're completely prepared to do the thing you have to do, but you're kind of hoping you don't have to. But the simple fact that you're prepared to do it changes people's behavior. And I think that's probably the case with Maduro over time here. He's getting put on notice that you can't just do whatever you want going forward. Regime change, I kind of regret all those neocon decades where it's like, hey, let's go do this, let's go do that. I'm personally far away from that thought, but I think what does happen is people start to behave differently when they realize that if we wanted to do it, we could do it. So you should start thinking differently in Venezuela.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Okay, I want to switch and talk about something you will be more experienced with than I will. Chicago. Trump went out and said, we're going in. Here he was.
Lined up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation. When we lose, when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot, Peter.
Okay, Doug, you know Chicago better than I do. Obviously, I love the place, but you know Chicago better than I do. I have grave concerns, and my concerns are because of this. The feds control D.C. completely. The feds do not control Chicago. Chicago, from the top down, Pritzker, Brandon Johnson, has a completely hostile political class that is not going to use the CPD in ways they probably should. They're already calling for the citizens to rise up. I consider this a completely different threat environment, and I'm worried about the safety of our guys. Not cleaning up of crime, I'm all fine with that, but I'm worried about the National Guard trying to replicate in Chicago what they did in D.C. Am I crazy?
No, you're not. I think that's the best point, is that it's not DC. DC has a different set of circumstances. The south side of Chicago is where most of this happens. Now Chicago's gotten a lot worse, and as you said, I know Chicago. Lived there for 23 years. I'm in Florida now. Made the move, but it hasn't been that long. Just was in Chicago for a wedding a couple weekends ago. Had to go downtown. Sad to see what's happened even downtown. But you get to the south side where where most of the violence happens and these killings. It's just you can't believe it's our country. I had to go for a long period of time down to University of Chicago Hospital. I had a sick relative down there, and you had to drive through the south side. And I've been through all the other Inglewood and Lawndale and everything else, and it's just crazy what has been going on for decades there. And this is really, it's just an endemic problem with the Democrats. They've created a situation where they're just looking for votes. They don't care. So they've taken family out of the black community. Education is horrible. There's way less emphasis on our Christianity and religion. And so you have a situation where they're basically just doing the best they can to farm votes down there because, in Illinois, downstate, it's very red. And so the Democrats have to, especially in statewide races, Pritzker and the Senate races, they have to really manufacture as many votes as they can in the city. So that's been the emphasis over the years, and they've really just neglected everything else. As long as those guys will keep pulling along with them, which I sincerely hope at some point there'll be the uprising politically against these guys in Chicago. So that's been the problem, and it's going to keep going until they stop it. But to your point, though, about having the military there, yes, it's a different environment. I think, though, you could say the South Side is so vast where all this is happening. But if you were very careful about it and very strategic, what happens when you put the uniformed people on the ground, it just calms things down. You don't expect them to do any real policing, and it gives the opportunity for the police around them to go after the guys that are kind of in their caves at the moment, right? So that would be the only approach you could get it done. But then you get into is there a declared emergency and stuff like that? And I personally, back to what I said in that previous segment about Venezuela, the first role of government is protect the people. And these guys, Pritzker and all these guys, we've watched all these Democrats all these years, they are completely out there now. They have no idea what it means to look out for their own people, obviously, or they would have done something by now. And I applaud President Trump for pushing it, making it a huge issue. But to your point, we got to think about this one very clearly. That's probably why President Trump said, it's on the way, because they probably they're grappling with, what's the mechanics of doing something like that in Chicago.
Can we fix it? Look, even if obviously Trump has very sharp people around him. That I'm sure you're right. They're coming up with a plan. Let's say we get the NG in there and they've got it locked down and cleaned up. What stops all that shooting, all that mess from coming in the second the National Guard guys have to go home to their wives and their jobs?
Yeah, that's the question. And that's partly why I left. I took my family and got out of Chicago, because the will to fix it over time just doesn't seem to be there. And so it's just the classic, political case of just at some point you have to have enough people that had always voted Democrat no matter what say, you know, we're going to do something different. And I've always been watching every election cycle. You know, we're at Restoration here, we do a lot of campaigns, right? And so I've always watched every election cycle. You know, you have the city council meetings, and you have the black folks coming in, and they're just like, you got to change this, you got to fix this. And I'm always thinking maybe there's going to be enough of them that won't vote Democrat, but the numbers don't play that out. So I'm just hoping at some point that people are going to say, you know, the Democrats are basically want crime in some ways, and the Republicans will stop it. And until that happens, until that mentality comes in, it's a major problem, because to win statewide, you get a new governor and a new approach in Illinois. You know, you can count on the downstate people for sure in some of the Collier County areas. But when you have such a heavy population inside Chicago that's just dead set on voting Democrat, it's a very difficult environment to change, just being honest. So I'm always prayerful, hopeful, but, you know, doesn't look great overall. But hey, it's their problem. It's, you know, they got to do something about it. They have all these people dying, and they're supposed to be doing something about it. So good for Trump for calling them out. And now, you know, Pritzker's got a PR problem on his hand because it looks like he's defending people dying. So I don't know. We'll see what happens on that one.
Doug, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.